Something you very rarely see in the RV marketplace is when they offer you one floor plan two very different ways. Welcome everybody, Josh the RV Nerd here at Bish, with Bish's RV down at Forest River, Cherokee today. I wasn't going to let a cold, drizzly day stop me, so apologies for the weird getup that I got going on today. It's chilly and it is not pleasant, but it's always a fun day when you get to talk about campers. I have a very cool job and I'm not going to complain about it. So this new model right here, the 285 Flex, it has two different back ends, basically. By default, this is I think you just call it like a family bunkhouse camper, but a true quad bunk, a true four rear bunk has become exceptionally rare in the world of fifth wheels. I don't really know of many other builders that are even doing it. They also did something I really like, where you have two fixed bunks on the left when you walk in the room, and then you have a move bunk, get out the way system, and being a fifth wheel, you have tons of headroom in there with what I call an eat and go dinette down below, so that you can use the dinette for seating or feed the kids or whatever, but it can also be a sleeper. But they offer a second queen bedroom option on this. Every time I record a bunkhouse, people will ask me things like, instead of bunks, could I get it with a second bed or anything like that? Most of the time, manufacturers don't offer that. This time, somebody does. So if maybe you have like an adult child with special needs, or let's say you're a camping couple, but you've reached the point in your lives where like maybe dad has to move back in with us or something like that. You know, maybe you need a true literal mother-in-law suite. This is one floor plan that can actually do some of those things. Or I don't see any reason why you couldn't modify it to like remove the rear sleepers and create an office or a mobile yoga studio, Rebecca. Like whatever works for you, okay? You can do whatever you want with this one, effectively. So if you appreciate how we get you down here I get in the rain to keep you out of the rain, hit that subscribe button and let's get going, because it's cold and I'm looking to get back inside the camper. Basically, back end of this thing will leave you shiver with anticipation. And then we do the time warp again. But moving on from there, here's what I can say about Arctic Wolf. When Arctic Wolf first debuted, it was a low budget, high volume sales machine, basically. And man, a lot of them sold very, very quickly. It's a 15,000 BTU air, by the way, 50 amp service. Back to the story. The thing is, they basically, if you bought an Arctic Wolf, you almost also needed to buy a professional grade staple gun just to put everything back in place. You had to buy a brad nailer, you know? And I don't like anything I just said, but it's fair and it's real. And I don't think anyone really denies it, even at the factory level, because starting really about 2 or 3 years ago, they were like, man, we really got to start being better. And what they didn't try to do was become the flashiest, fanciest, biggest, baddest fifth wheel the world had ever seen. What they tried to do was to just execute their plans more cleanly. And I'll give them credit. I think they are really accomplishing that. I don't see these things packed full of like sawdust and random wire bits. I don't see trim and cabinets kind of loose as I had in the past. It's like if you're like, listen, I don't need my final RV ever. I need something I can just rely on to take my family out for a number of years and then trade off and then get the mega retirement camper. I think that's kind of where this is fitting in. And some of their bigger bed slide models, I could see someone actually spending some extended time in those, because they have made some nice improvements along the way too. There's also some uncommon and kind of nice smart equipment through these. I will also say there's a couple areas in this that I feel they have missed. So all of that being said, what are we really looking at here? By the way, the coloration on this RV is not translating properly to camera. There's something about the lighting and or the ambient lights outside. Everything looks very yellowed. This almost looks like a smoker's bowling alley from the 80s as I look at it on camera. It looks better in person. I highly recommend you see this in person, because the camera is absolutely not being friendly to us today. So that being said, what are some deeper details that we're getting here? Well, if you need all the sleeping, you do have a larger, what I call true U dinette. What's nice about that, a smaller U dinette, you really can't fit a whole lot of people around. This one, you can generally still fit 4 people as long as they're smalls and littles. If you grab a couple extra chairs and put them kind of between where those drawers are sticking out, you can get a little extra space. I also appreciate that they give us the full extension drawers, and they have moved away from the zebra shades. I always figured they were using them because they were less expensive. Turns out they're not inexpensive. I also have discovered by watching the comments folks have left over the years, they're also not preferred. So Arctic Wolf went, all right, we'll get away from that. Remember I was talking about the fit and finish? Things like when you look at the header fascia, above the slide, this big one-piece seamless beam, and the way that it's all bracketed in place, it just fits better, looks better. There's fewer joints. There's just less opportunity for human failure. And I think that's just a really smart way to go. It probably cost a couple bucks, but if it means you don't have to work on the thing, I'm not necessarily upset about that. The location at converter fuse box to the right of the central vacuum system is also really nice because it's not in the kids' bunk room, but if the slide's closed, you can still get to it. So really good, smart execution there. If you're a first-time RV, you may not even know to look for stuff like that, so hopefully that's helpful. But the central vacuum is actually a very standout quality you don't normally get in an RV in this size, class, and or price point. Then just little details like a spot for a wastebasket under the sink. It's such a simple thing, and it just drives me crazy when manufacturers just don't provide stuff like that. You may notice too, in the kitchen, solid surface countertops. Then notice the way I stress kitchen. It's not necessarily solid surface throughout the entire RV, but where you're doing the majority of your wet work, I guess you say, you do have it there. Now, they don't run the cabinets all the way up to the ceilings. I do think that, see, there's that color change on the camera again. I do think there's plenty of storage here, but I've heard from a lot of viewers when the cabinets don't go up to the ceiling, the word that people tend to use them for is dust collectors. And you might notice how the cabinet above the microwave is not open. There is storage here, but it's not an anti-gravity door, as it were. It was not made by the Spacely Sprocket Corporation. It's more of a gravity drop variety. They are sticking with, by the way, the larger, like 10 cubic foot, 12 volt compressor fridge. I want to mention that because there's more and more brands that are quietly sneaking down to the smaller one. And it seems like more and more RV builders are adopting these swing open pantry tainment centers. I actually really like, if you look closely, you see how the whole swing open door section, it's actually aluminum framed with a welded cage. So, they realized that you got this big object swinging open in the air. They wanted a little more strength and consistency than what, a couple cheap boards might provide. Now, if you look, you do have a set of power outlets on the back of this thing right here. You've got your pantry storage, but then you have this big tall pocket. I wish they would have just spent an extra 12 cents or whatever, $5, I don't know, and put a hanging rod in the top section, well, the left section there, that big tall section. But it can still be really handy, like if you have brooms or I would say cordless vacuum, but the RV already has a vacuum system built into it. And here's the thing that makes me scratch my head. Above the microwave, it was not an anti-gravity door. Above the giant pantry tainment center, it is a strutted anti-gravity door. Why not just do it consistently? I don't know. Anyway, I think, I got to double check, because again, this is a new generation of these right here. I think you might have an opportunity for a theater seat over here. My guess is the hide-a-bed for maximum sleeping is probably going to be factory standard. And again, we have the newer updated blackout roller shades. But one thing I want to point out, just to be fair, the slide side windows, although large for viewing, do not provide airflow. So I just want to be super clear and fair about everything. Working our way back here, you got a sliding privacy door for the rear bunk room, but it's a very rare find. Basically, everything in the back room of this RV is very much not the industry norm and standard. You'll see a lot of travel trailers with a private quad bunk arrangement like this, but for whatever reason, it's ultra rare in fifth wheels, and I don't know why. I've never quite figured that out. One of the cool things about this being a fifth wheel, though, is the amount of uh, overhead space, the amount of verticality between each bunk is way bigger than you normally get in a travel trailer. Notice too, 300-pound rated bunks and a ladder to get somebody into the upper bed so you don't have to throw them into the upper bed and blow out a rotator cuff or something, which is kind of cool. And, you know, if you need to sleep, everybody, you have that capacity, especially with the sleeper seating in the living room. But on a frankly, on a day like today, where it's like 40 degrees and drizzling all day, having an extra space like this where the kids can keep themselves entertained is really, really useful. But what if you're not looking for the traditional family RV adventure? Well, that's where this comes in. Now, we don't have lighting and power in this sister unit currently, so basically I'm just jumping over here real fast to get you this footage. But instead of a traditional bunkhouse, some power outlets around the corner, by the way, you can option in a second bedroom. Now, it's an east-west corner bed, and this is a short queen, whereas you'll find a 60 by 80 true queen in the front of the RV. So it's, you know, this is definitely probably a little bit more well-suited for just a single person back here as opposed to a family. But there are a lot of, I will say, non-traditional camping families out there that I don't know the industry serves very well. Because there's more than just that traditional American nuclear family. Like, I'm not looking for sympathy, but like, I'm a child of divorce, you know. That traditional scenario doesn't really apply to me. But there's plenty of families that maybe have a special needs child who maybe is very sound sensitive, who needs some noise dampening. Or, again, it's not always even just about the kids. I have spoken with countless families over the years. I've been doing this, I'm approaching 17 years, but a solid 16. And there are people who, you know, like mom or dad have had a hip displacement and they don't want to leave them alone. Or maybe like dad has dementia or something like that. Like these are very, like no one wants to talk about it because it feels uncomfortable, but these are very real scenarios, very real family scenarios where people still want to get out and make memories while they can. And RVs like this can give them a way of doing that. Sorry, my brain just went, hang on, where are the kitchen power outlets? I'm going to bet your paycheck they're under this overhead cabinet. And good news, you get to keep your paycheck because there's the outlets under the overhead cabinet. Octopus Fight Club! The Octopus Fight Club is also one of those camping groups that just does not get the recognition and the representation I think it deserves. Moving upstairs, the what do I want to say? Oh, toilet. Porcelain foot flush toilet here. I think very reasonably spacious and friendly, especially when you get, if you want to privatize the bathroom and close that pocket door. At a glance, the bathroom is one of the areas where I personally have a couple notes. At a glance, I looked at it and said, oh man, there's no cabinet to keep my towels. That's what this guy is for. You see these little curvy hooks? What you do with this thing is you roll towels up and you stuff them in there burrito style. And then you can keep some extra toiletries or something in that little rack above, or roll up some washcloths or whatever, you know. Up top here, I love the fact that they just factory standardized this larger vent fan. The Cherokee group is probably one of the best for that. They have more RVs with the bigger vent fans standard than I think any other RV organization, period. The headroom in this upper deck also does not suck. I'm a little over 6 foot tall, wearing some crazy thick-soled shoes and whatnot, and I'm fitting in here just fine. One of the areas, though, where I personally feel this bathroom may be lacking a little bit is when we come over here, visually, aesthetically, I love the look of this, like, you know, circle track, oval track race car style sort of mirror. And when you look over here, down below, you could put a little wastebasket there. Maybe that's where you want to stack some towels. I don't know. You've got this little pocket where maybe you can keep some Lipitorage or something like that. But you don't actually have a medicine cabinet here. You have a very cool looking mirror that does stay pretty hugged against the wall, so you have plenty of space to like bend over and wash your face and whatnot. And this is kind of interesting too. The little paw print right here, it's actually it's the light switch for the mirror. Of course, I have to actually, touch the thing properly, and there we go. Moving forward, something I haven't pointed out, but both your living room and up here in your bedroom, you do have dimmer switch lighting, which is kind of nice. Working forward, remember, you can get these 50 amp, well, I think these are 50 amp service. You can install second air. Now, the one we're looking at here does not have a factory second air installed. That's your wiring junction box for a second AC. If you install a second air on an Arctic Wolf, it does cost a little bit more because the dealership actually has to basically cut the vent out. But if you don't want the second air, there's not a giant thermal hole in the ceiling. So there is a push-pull benefit drawback there. My goal is always to be fair in my videos. They have redesigned their bedrooms a little bit this year. I think overall, they went the right direction with this. So they kind of went with a Jack and Jill bedside arrangement. Over here, we have a bigger open side stand with some power outlets and a little dresser drawer. You might notice they don't have the ankle breaker step of death around the 60 by 80 true queen bed. They don't offer a king option in this. The bed slide Arctic Wolves just already come with kings, basically. Over here, they have a traditional hanging closet. Now, what I haven't done is I haven't opened this overhead cabinetry. I'm going to guess in just a second here, you're going to see the cabinet doors not magically open because I'm guessing they are not the anti-gravity doors. And I was correct. Now, if I have to guess by looking around at this, I think the logic Arctic Wolf is probably applying on these overhead cabinet doors is if you can fairly reasonably reach it from ground level, they're not including the anti-gravity struts. If you can't reach it, then they're including the anti-gravity struts. That's only a guess. I could be wrong. I threw my hat in there to give you a frame of reference. I'm going to grab this because a couple days ago I was recording at Keystone and forgot my hat and had to come back and get it the next day. And that's a long drive just for a hat. Oh, good. I was hoping there was going to be some power outlets or something over here. I saw that shelf under the bed so that you can have a space to like have your phone beside you or whatever on both sides of the bed. Now, if you're looking at this going, yeah, that's not a lot of hanging closet space though. You are correct. That's why they build in this big corner closet over here. Now, this is not washer dryer prepped. It's just maximum storage. There are plenty of washer dryer prepped Arctic Wolves, but usually it's in their Suite series, the full bed slide series. That's where you'll find those. And there's really only technically one level of Arctic Wolf, but I guess the Suite models are kind of like an additional in-betweener, if you will. And it's not like it's amazing. It doesn't have to be much, but just a place to like hang a couple things real quick in a bedroom. That kind of stuff can actually be really, really useful. I think we're good. I think all that's left to do is close the slide up and probably lose the bunkhouse and potentially a chunk of the kitchen with the slide closed. Let's find out. Well, for the most part, I was right. But I don't want to be. It feels so close. Because, obviously, when you get these, why did they go with this peninsula? Why did they block it off? Basically, they added 50% more storage and more counter space to an RV that otherwise was extremely lacking. So I get why they did it. It was almost a functional need. But we are kind of blocked off here. Here's the thing. This is a AccuSlide system. And one of the kind of benefits of AccuSlide is sort of like a rack and pinion. If you want to just bump it out a little bit so that you can sneak around this thing, because you kind of shouldn't be crawling through the slide when it's retracted. I've done it. I don't recommend it, but I've done it. Well, then you can get through here. Or you can do a Dukes of Hazzard yee-haw over the countertop. Then you can get to the fridge, the storage. You could even get to the bunks when that slide is closed. So this RV definitely does not get A+ travel access, but It's also not the worst I've ever seen in terms of road mode function. The only thing I want to mention is if you do crack the slide open like I just did, you want to make sure you get it back closed so that it's sealed properly. And if you appreciate the extra little details like this, hit that subscribe button. Let us know we're doing a good job. And we got a reflection of somebody walking in that mirror right there. That was kind of trippy. Now, at the time that I'm recording this, technically, these 2026 models haven't even been released. I was very proactive in getting a hold of our factory contacts to start collecting 2026 footage for you folks as soon as I possibly could. The trick with that is some of these newer models haven't even gone through the normal weights and measures process. So, as a result, I don't have the actual weights of the RV in front of me. So, in terms of towing, here's what I'm going to estimate. Probably 3/4 ton towing. And I say that because even small fifth wheels like this historically have more pin weight, hitch weight, than a half-ton vehicle is truly supposed to be capable of handling. So that is an estimation, not a guarantee. Regardless, though, anytime it comes to towing, you should always compare your individual towing specs against the trailer and then compare that against your intended use of the RV. Working our way over here. Now, hold on. I'm going to back up. Real quick because I glossed over something. Remember that we have 2 copies of the same floor plan in front of us. Ignore that one in the background with a windshield for now. That'll be another video for another day. These are the same RV. Look at the back corner of this. You see where that tankless on-demand water heater is on this one? Then there's just a window down there. That's the 2-bedroom. When we get around the corner here, you see how there's that little cargo door? This is the bunkhouse. So there actually is an exterior tell, as it were, letting you know which one is which. I do appreciate the little doggy leash latch under, I think, a very reasonably sized awning. And I actually like the central entry door below that awning because on a day like today, where it's just drizzly enough to annoy you, you can kind of get away from some of that. Little mini camp kitchenette here. It's just, there's a pocket of space under that L-shaped kitchen counter that is, you can't really do much with. So they did something with it. Now, I will tell you that if you are cooking on that griddle and one of the kids goes to reach over it to grab a hug juice barrel out of Dad's medicine cabinet where you keep the bottled water and the barley pop, they are potentially going to burn their arms. So, when you're cooking, keep the kids away, basically. That's also one of the reasons I kind of like that larger entry handle. I think it just helps sort of keep hands away from a hot cooking surface. And here's the other thing. If you're like, yeah, I'm not comfortable with this at all, take the griddle out. Nothing says you have to leave the griddle there. It's factory standard, but you can take it out of there. There's still a gas grill quick connect down below. Backing my way up here. Looks like, okay, no more Goodyear Endurance radials. I tell you what, probably due to cost vectors, a lot of manufacturers have started moving away from Goodyears. It's kind of funny. For a long time, most manufacturers didn't use Goodyears. And then when imports got to be a problem in terms of supply and Goodyears were more available domestically, it's funny how many manufacturers jumped over on the Goodyear bandwagon. And it seems like that's changing back. So, I don't know. I guess do with that information what you will. You may have noticed, though, right behind those tires, the automatic leveling legs. And it kind of throws people off that those are located up closer to the tires and not to the back of the RV like traditional stabilizers are. Basically, a leveling jack and a drop-down stabilizer work differently and basically need to be located in different places on the RV. Now, something I need to get clarity on. I don't even see rear ladder prep brackets on these. It is very possible they are still rear wall ladder prepped, but with these being 2026 updated models, and I don't have the full 2026 update notes in front of me, that's one of those things that I'll need to double check on. So if I forget to clarify that on camera and you're very curious, please contact a local member of our team. By the time this footage sees the light of day, that information should be more readily available to the team. 3,000-pound rear towing hitch with the 4-way wiring harness and 300-pound vertical limit. I'm seeing, let's see if we have one or two little, what do I want to say, sewer outlets on this. You might notice that is a cable slide system. I think we mentioned that indoors. Also, it's kind of like a mirror tint on the outside of the RV. Why is that light flickering in there? I think that's just a weird artifact of the camera trying to figure out what's going on with that mirror tint. So apologies to anyone who is photosensitive, such as my editor, who has to watch every single freaking frame of this. Hopefully that didn't cause him any distress. My apologies, Mr. Garrett. Enclosed docking center, big storage compartment. But one of the things I like down here is the fact that it has no of that felty carpeted stuff down there in the pass-through area. One last little note. This is a heated, enclosed underbelly. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is like the Arctic Wolf is not necessarily Arctic rated. But for most people like me who maybe punch a clock for a living, spring, summer, fall, extended shoulder season, she's good. So I'd be a little curious. What do you think about the Flex design? First of all, again, rare quad bunk. Secondly, even more rare second bedroom. And this is probably the smallest second bedroom fifth wheel I've seen. Some very interesting things going on down here, and I commend them for that. I like when I see manufacturers just not do the same thing all the time. And whether you're curious or whether you're serious, you can always check the links in the video description to get an eyeball of pricing and or availability. Additionally, I'm going to look up a few other things. I would say similar, but maybe similar to the Bunkhouse version, because I don't know of anything else like the 2-bedroom version of this in a small to mid-size fifth wheel. So I don't know. Leave me a note. Let me know what you think about this thing. Did they nail it? Did they fail it? Is it somewhere in between? Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay dry, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.